welcome to the How Can You podcast, where we dive deep into the minds of entrepreneurs and kind of figure out how they got to where they are so you can hopefully do the same thing. So today I'm here with LJ. He's a mindset coach. He trades Forex. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Oh, you've done it for me, bro.
Yeah, so I guess I want to start on kind of your early days.
Yeah, of course.
So like, what was that turning point in your life that made you dive into the realm of entrepreneurship?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, early days, it depends how early you want to go. I think from school, it was a case of like, how can I make a little bit more money? You know, I was that kid with the cookies in the bag and like the drinks, even like stationery and stuff like that, just to try and like make a quick buck and this, that, the other. And then as I left, I got into the classic way, you know, go get an apprenticeship, this, that, the other, get qualified, and then think, you know what, this is not for me, and leave that way before I was supposed to. Got a hefty fine from the company I was working for just ducking out too quick. In the trade I was in construction, in my early 20s, I set up a business doing so, and I was met with quite a lot of doubt, to be honest with you. It was like a case of, you're too young, you're too inexperienced. Yeah, you know, and especially like I was trying to compete with the big boys in London, so it was a bit of a tough market at the time. But yeah, that drive was there. I don't really know where it came from, but it was hunger, and it was a case of like I never really liked being told what to do. I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
You know, I don't like the idea of this whole you go on lunch when I say, you go on holiday if I allow it, and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it kind of went from there. And it scaled pretty quickly in the construction business. It done okay. Like I had a few employees at the very start, and then we built up, and like I said, competing left, right, and centre, getting pushed back a fair bit, and getting into a few heated debates and whatnot, and just trying to stand my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, it paid off pretty well through my 20s, and we hit a bit of a bumpy road. That's towards the back end of my 20s. I won't cut in too quick, but you know, the pandemic, obviously, that everyone experienced in construction was actually a bit of a difficult term, because I was stuck on terms that were previous, and then pricing and stuff went up, and I was really kind of unhappy. I was unhappy with how the industry kind of tried to undercut the guy underneath, and this, that, the other. It was a very cutthroat business, and I just done I've done what I could to sort of deviate around and this, that, and I found myself in legal sort of matters here and there, and it was just a bit stressful. And that's when I dived into Forex. And typically one of those guys, you know, it's like YouTube and signals and all of this sort of stuff. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. In the Forex industry, that to me, unfortunately, it's very much displayed like the get rich quick kind of way, and that's not the reality, man. That really is not the reality. It's tough. It's very tough. But you know, it's like anything in life. The more you apply yourself to something, the higher the chance you have. Like luck we're all blessed with luck. It's whether or not we take the opportunity to push for it. Like it could be our luckiest day right now, but we don't know unless we're willing to take the chance. Yeah. So yeah, I just kept grinding away, losing a bit of money here and there. And it got to a point where I was kind of trading more than I was working on my construction business, if you like. I had like teams of guys out on particular sites and this, that, the other, and was kind of organizational in that aspect, but it just wasn't my drive, man. I despised the way the industry was running, as I said. And I think COVID for me was like a blessing in disguise, because it gave me the opportunity to step out, really. Once my sites that I was working on, a few of them shut down, I had to then lay guys off, and you know, it was all these kind of difficulties that we were met with. And then, I just took the leap and got rid of that and focused completely on my trading, which paid off for me, thankfully. And then, from there, I realised like the amount of people that are in the industry of trading that, you know, it's such a psychologically taxing career path. It's tough. Like going to work and sometimes coming away down it's hard to accept, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't go into work and go, oh yeah, here's my money,
Yeah.
see you later. Like, it don't work like that, but it does when you're trading Forex or whatever else you might be looking at in the financial market. So yeah, it can be quite difficult. And with that, I got on board a mindset coach myself, a bit of a psychologist, this, that, the other, and it was a case of just restructuring my mind into the best ways of overcoming these conversations in my head that would potentially act as a bit of a hurdle. And they were beneficial, and I attended a few seminars, and then that's kind of when I dived into the personal development realm of the books and finding my idols like Joe Dispenza and whoever it may be. And it just really helped me. It pushed me, it leaped me forward so much more, and it made me realise like you can excel far greater if you position yourself in certain environments. Like you can be limited if you're sort of trapped in this little kind of bubble. But if you put yourself in a position where you stand such, again, like I was talking about with luck, like you just heighten your chances of that lucky escape almost. And that is kind of what led me to moving halfway across the world and just being in an area where the stress is minimal. What's there to worry about? And then I realised like through conversations I was having with quite a few people about how do you overcome this? What is it with your like? How do you stay strong through like mental challenges and this, that, and the other? And I'm like, whoa, I still get them. I absolutely still battle with myself quite frequently. But they talk about it in psychology of the gap. Have you heard of the gap before in your mind? So the gap is basically it's that time between you something triggering you and the response that you give it. So it could be a case, and the response, by the way, is always inherently it's negative because it's there to protect you, right? Like we have a negative bias from birth, almost like it's we go back for years and years and years. Like I say, it's hereditary. It's just a case of like go thousands of years back. It's like, right, I need to be negative here. I need to think about how I can protect myself if I get attacked from behind when I'm hunting for my food. So we all have this like negative bias inside us, but to become aware of that and see it as just a voice, just a gap, and the more you can close this gap down, the easier life becomes, and that is kind of where it got to for me. It was just a case of like, nope, shut up, go away, I'm still focusing. And I was having those kind of conversations, and it just helped me, man. It just helped me push forward and go through adversity, because there's a deeper story behind the whole construction business and how my mental state was through that. It was quite difficult, but to push through it and to be where I am today, I'm very, very fortunate, and thankfully I'm able to help others along the way too. So I try to condense all of that down as much as I could.
100%. So I hear a lot of times about like trading, you have to have a very strong mindset. So it's interesting. It kind of seems like the Forex trading led you to become a mindset coach. It kind of led you down that path of fortifying your mind and then ultimately being able to teach that to others. Is that accurate?
Exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because it's a case of like the whole saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So like by just focusing or switching up your day into such a way that you are disciplined, you are focused, you're really caring about yourself. You're not almost, you got to build these boundaries that you didn't. I think we go through a state, well, I did anyway, of like trying to people please. Like maybe it's from our youth potentially growing up trying to make friends. That might be where it starts. I don't know. That's just kind of comes to mind. But in that, you kind of your boundaries are nothing, right? And you just allow so much in. But if you are there to really sort of focus on yourself and on the sort of practices that you put in place to benefit your life, then you will grow exponentially. And that to me is beautiful. That is kind of where like the whole mindset, I guess mindset coaching. I don't like the term coaching because there's so many coaches now. It's just it's a philosophy, I guess.
100%. So you talked about you came here. I mean, currently we're in Bali, right? So you moved all the way across the world, and the one thing about Bali that I've noticed, and probably my favorite part, is the high concentration of successful people or people on their way to become successful. So what would you say about the saying that you are a product of the 5 people closest to you.
Yeah, the average of the 5 people. Yeah, exactly that. I'm glad we touched on this, to be honest, or we were talking about this, because that's something I've learned recently, really, like deeper, to a deeper meaning. Your environment is so important. You can think that you're like, like you're in your own mind, and as long as you take care of that, you're okay. But that's only to one degree. That's only to one kind of level. But when you actually put yourself in an environment where you are surrounded by others that inspire you, who knows where you'll end up? Who knows where you'll end up? There was an analogy that I come across a while back, and it was saying like how a horse can only pull a cart at a certain speed, right? And that's it. No matter how hard this horse tries to run, it's going to hit a top end, and that'll be it stuck. But if you put another horse in with that cart, it doesn't pull it double the speed. It can pull it far faster. The maths behind it, I don't really know, but that just shows like if you was to put yourself in a position where you're around people like you that can elevate you, it's not like you're just going to double up. You've got opportunities beyond measure that you wouldn't even be able to sort of even articulate if you were sitting at home in your bedroom in whatever it might be from wherever you're from. Like, obviously it's quite difficult to just up and leave and put yourself into these certain environments. It can be, maybe it's not. And you don't need to leave the country. You don't need to do that. But you definitely need to find your tribe.
100%.
You need to find your tribe and find people that are just like you, effectively, or even better than you. Better than you is far better, to be honest, because for me it's like I'm blessed with my tribes in different areas. Like if I kind of want to delve into my mind on a bit of a more of a spiritual level, I've got a friend that's a shaman that I spend some time with him, and it just opens me up to all these things I didn't even know were possible. And if I want to increase my level of, say, discipline or hard work physically, and I've got a friend that's an absolute monster that makes me feel like I'm just being an absolute pussy, but not training properly, you know. And yeah, it just goes on and on and on. It can work in a social environment as well. You know, you need a laugh. You spend some time with people that just humour you, and that's great. It's incredible, and that's what relationships are. So, yeah, where your environment is so important, man.
100%.
So important, and it needs to be. You need to find your peace as well. Because I think we're trapped in a society nowadays where we thrive off of drama, and it kind of defaults back to the negative bias, you know. And there's a comparison almost. It's like, well, I'm not doing as bad as them, so my life's okay. But that's a terrible way to look at things, you know.
Yeah.
It should be like, wow, they're doing incredibly. How can I level up?
Yeah.
That's more.
100%. That's one thing I've noticed between the people that actually do go after their dreams and the people that don't. Is the people that go after their dreams, they look at all these people higher than them as motivation. It's like, I can't be like that. How do I get like that? Whereas the people that don't go after their dreams, they look at them and they're like, oh, they got lucky. They're a scammer. They're this and that. It's like, yeah, I think.
Yeah, man, I agree, because I don't like jealousy. To me, I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in jealousy. If there's anyone doing better than me, I'm inspired by it.
Yeah.
I love it, and there are tons. And I don't feel like I'm doing better than anybody else. By the way, I need to say that. But if there's anyone I can help, I'm grateful. Like, you're giving me the opportunity to do so. Like, I'm very thankful that I can guide you, because I'm only really sharing you what I've been told before, and I'm just putting that into practice, and it's got me to where I am. I hope it helps.
Yeah.
You know.
100%. Alright, so let's take this back to your construction business and kind of what happened with that. You're mentioning something about your mindset or your mind state during that time. So yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I say, it boomed for me. It was incredible. My early 20s, like I say, launched it, and it I thought I cracked the code. I thought I cracked the code. I was living a pretty good life, and everything was just working out for me. And I was just expanding like beyond where I thought was possible, but obviously realised that there's still a hell of a lot of growth to be had, and there's still a lot more money that I could make, and it was exciting. And then it kind of it took a turn through this scam pandemic.
Scamdemic?
Yeah, the scamdemic. It took a turn through that, man, and it just slowly but surely started to fade away. Just prior to that, my wealth kind of just took off. Like, it absolutely took off, and I was I was in such a secure state of mind, and maybe I got a bit ignorant with it. Maybe I got a bit ill-disciplined, and that is a potential too. But in that, sorry, I need to go back a little further. When I was in that construction business and this, that, the other, and the wealth was climbing, I glued myself to this identity, and I was like, I was doing okay, and I never really let it get to my head, but I knew that I was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So when it all started to sort of crumble, it really fucked with my mind, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, it wasn't just a case of like going through a difficult spot. It was also a case of, who am I?
Yeah.
And it's such a silly place to be, really, because you don't need all of like the material items. You don't need the fancy cars and the big houses and this and that to make you who you are. But I was so attached to that persona that it really threw me off guard, and it got to a point where I let go of the company in the end, because it was too much to handle. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to sort of have a bit of a fallback option, but I couldn't register that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I started to get some really sort of deep thoughts in my mind, and I was sitting on the sofa in my 7-bed house with just me and my dogs, and like the cars on the drive, and I'm in tears, man, because I'm like, what do I do? And where do I turn? Who do I lean on? And I was lost, and then these thoughts come in of like, maybe it's just better if you go, and that's dark.
Yeah.
That's so dark. And I'm like sort of toying with all these ideas, and I'm like, mate, what is going on? You need to do something now. And then that's when I actually got in touch with a different coach in the end, for my own mental health, for my own mental well-being, who was far more sort of neurologically biased and identified, like these neural pathways as to why I'm thinking the way I am, and this, that, the other. But yeah, that was a dark area of my life, and I don't think it's spoken about enough. I don't doubt that I would imagine other people go through these kind of experiences and pull themselves out, thankfully, but at the same time, some don't.
Mm-hmm.
And we as men are almost encouraged to be like, I never have problems, I am absolutely fine, I am a leader of the pack, I am this, I am that, which is, I think, something we should strive for. But we all have our down days, and we all go through our troubles, and I think the blessing for me was to see that like this now, it took me a while, but this now is the best opportunity to grow. Like, it can't go wrong. I'm down at this level, I'm at rock bottom, it cannot go wrong. It took me fucking ages to realise that. And yeah, once I saw that there's opportunities around me beyond belief, man, they're everywhere, and what have I got to lose? And that really did kind of propel me into thinking, let's fix up, let's go again, and let's start with a clean slate. So it really did, the biggest obstacle in my life was absolutely the path I needed to take.
So you were obviously in a very dark place, and then you obviously came out of it. So what was one of the biggest things, or the mindset shifts, or perspective, or even if there isn't one, what was something that really helped you to get out of that space? What was almost like the solution for you, so to say?
To realise how precious life is. I don't know, what's the stat Gary Vee talks about? Is it 1 in 400 billion to 1 or something? 400 billion to 1 of you being born.
Oh yeah.
Like, life is so precious, man, and the stories we tell ourselves and the personas we identify as, they're all bullshit, man. Like, it's just an experience. It is purely just an experience, and to realise that you can craft it in any which way you wish is in itself so powerful. And like I was talking about earlier, like, just to position yourself in environments that make you feel fulfilled, so that even if you are having a bit of a down day, you know that you've got a lot to be grateful for. So yeah, I think that's it, like, just anytime we're met with, you know, these difficulties of where do I turn, what do I do, just to know that you're blessed, man. It's hard to see. I get it.
100%.
Sometimes it's hard to see. And comparison is a thief of joy, but there are people out there that are wishing to be in your position right now. So don't take it for granted.
100%. Yeah, that's one thing I've really started thinking about more is like gratitude, in the sense that like just me being born in the country I was born in, having a phone with Wi-Fi, with this and that, I'm in such a better position than a lot of the world, and that's something.
Yeah, I think that is I think it's 60% of the world haven't even got internet, or maybe somewhere around 40%. But it's like that alone, you know.
Yeah.
And our business sort of depends on it, you know. So there is so much fortune, even just to be able to wake up and see the sunshine, you know, or have a meal. Like, we're blessed to the finest detail. Yeah. But we put it to the back because we think, oh, they're living such a good life. I wish I no, man, no.
Yeah. One of the, I think, best pieces of advice in terms of comparison is that the only comparison that's worthwhile is the comparison with you yesterday. And that's the only comparison that will ever matter and that will ever help you.
Yeah, and I think from that is something I took from Ed Milet of Just One More that he speaks about, you know. So if you're going to compare yourself to yesterday, to make yourself that much better today is not hard. You've only got to do like 1% more than you did the day before. If you went to the gym like yesterday and you trained for half an hour, train for 30 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever the 1% is, or, you know, anything to mentally stimulate yourself to just be that tiny bit better, because I think we forget about the power of compound. If we don't see results in a week's time, what's the fucking point half the time, you know? But it doesn't work like that, man. If you was to track yourself for 1 year, you would be so pleased with where you are right now. But we live in a world where it's like instant gratification. Like, I need a dopamine hit. Okay, I want to post something and get a like, you know. But it don't work like that, man. It's just, if you can be committed to your cause, you will get results. And that's when I was saying about luck. Like, we're blessed with it. We don't have the power necessarily as to when our opportunity will come, but if we keep showing up, one day it will. You only lose when you quit.
100%. Yeah, that's one thing. So there's this book from Seth Godin called The Dip, and it talks about how when people start a new project or a business or whatever it may be, at first they get super excited about it, and there's like it's a graphic, so they get super excited, and then they go through the dip. And in the dip is where most people quit, right? But right after the dip is when you start seeing results, right? And it's just like exactly like you were saying, you're just like, don't quit. Like, I started posting content 6 months ago, and for 6 months it didn't do insanely well, right? I'm still posting content, but now it's starting to gain some traction, and it's like, if I quit, then I wouldn't be here today. But it's just persisting through that, getting better, like, yeah,
consistency is attractive, man, and you will be rewarded. Again, like I say, it's not up to you as to when. It just isn't. All you can keep doing is showing up and just pushing through, and, you know, making a commitment to yourself of like, if I continue, I will do better. Because what would you rather, like, go through this tiny little bit of pain, or whether it's an insecure feeling of like, oh, if I post again and it doesn't really get much, but then see yourself in a month's time and be like, oh yeah, I didn't do anything. You know, what's more painful?
100%.
You know, like this tiny bit. It kind of works. It's a bit paradoxical in that sense. Like, the pain is lesser here if you just stop, but greater here at the end. But the results, you know, they switch them on their head almost. So it's just a case of like, that commitment means so much if you can just strive on through.
100%.
I like the hand mudra, by the way. Yeah, I was like going to join you halfway through.
Let's talk about, are you familiar with the speech from, I think it's Teddy Roosevelt, about the man in the arena? And it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. It's like, when you're the man in the arena and you have sweat and you have the blood and you're actually doing it, everyone else that's not in the arena, they're going to talk. They're going to say this and that. But the thing about it is that they're not in the arena. And anyone else that's in the arena, they're not going to talk about you in a negative sense. They're not going to criticize you. They're not going to do any of these type of things. And that's one thing I also kind of realized with like posting content, is that like, if someone disagrees with me, if someone doesn't like me, if someone hates me, whatever, it doesn't really matter because those aren't the people that I would want to be friends with, want to do business with, want to have as my client, want to have close to me at all, right? So like, what are your thoughts on that?
Have you ever noticed that you'll never be insulted by someone that's doing better than you?
Yep.
You know, they're always there to pull you up and join them. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Denzel Washington mentions this quote, and he's like, basically, as you come up, don't just go up alone. Pull someone up with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's exactly that analogy. It's a case of like the people that are doing better than you want you to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
The people that aren't envy you
Mm-hmm.
and just want to kind of knock you off of balance, and then, you know, be like, yeah, come be one of us,
Mhm.
almost, you know.
Yeah.
And that's where like this herd mentality comes in. But if you want to break away from the mold, you got to accept that you're going to have people hate on you and try and push you down, because relatability comes in there, and
Mhm.
it's comfortable to be relatable, but fuck that.
Fuck that. Yeah, that's kind of something Ed Milet talks about with like, just because you're doing something, it exposes the people that aren't, so they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's not like you're insulting them directly or anything like that,
No.
but just because you're doing something, it shows them that they aren't. And it's like, yeah, because like I've seen that with my own friends. It's like, I ultimately at the end of the day, I just want to help them. I just want to bring them up. I just want them to be on the same level as me or higher or whatever. I just want them to come up with me, right? And a lot of them were quite resistant to that. And yeah.
There's a beauty behind that though, because I live by the term become selfishly selfless. So, you know, and with that, it's a case of just try and help as many people as you can. But if you can kind of see it from a sense where like it makes you feel good,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so there is an argument there that you're being quite selfish because you're getting all of this like feel good whatever out of
Yeah.
it, but you're helping people in the process. So fuck it, man. Just
Yeah.
be selfishly selfless. Like put yourself out and help as many people as you can, because A, you're going to feel good in the process, and B, you reap what you sow. So the more you put out to the world, the more you'll get back. It's kind of, it'll work in that way of almost like a magnet, I guess.
Yeah,
You know.
100%.
So yeah, man. Good on you for reaching out to your friends and just trying to pull them up with you, regardless of the fact that there are people out there that are making these comments or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna get it.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of the process. Okay, so now I kind of want to dive into the how can you part of the podcast.
Mhm.
So for someone sitting at home and they're watching this and they want to start day trading, they want to start Forex, they want to become a mindset coach, or they want to move to Bali. What would you say the first step for you was in all of this? I mean, obviously it was a process of like you went through all these different twists and turns.
I think the biggest thing that sort of stands out to me, especially in my previous, let's call it, persona, like way before I had my business this idea, or maybe even when I started that, was just dropping the fucking arrogance, man, and feeling like you know everything. Like the moment you can go back into, I was asked a question a while ago, and it was, what is your authentic self? And it really made me sit there and think for a while. And I came to the conclusion that me at my most authentic being is when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I was a curious little boy, asking all sorts of questions, being told the answers, and then just taking them on board, and not being afraid of how I looked, how I moved, how I danced, you know, in the middle of a supermarket. Not that I don't think I've ever done that, but you know,
Yeah.
just being so open, you know. And for me, it was a big sort of, I guess, growth period was trying to become that again, and just being curious and questioning everything and taking it all on board, whether or not my ego was saying to me that's wrong, like ignore that, because ultimately I'm listening to this particular tutor or mentor or whatever for a reason. They are where they are because of what they've achieved. So it's a case of, regardless of my opinion, I'm going to try and take this on board and you know, just be so much more open to learning. As well, like going through our typical education system, we are very much sort of bred to listen to, like, you know, we're almost taught in a binary kind of way of thinking, like it's a yes or a no, but that does not need to be the case, man.
Yeah.
There's multiple outcomes. So if you can just try and take on board everything you hear and listen to and converse with other people, whatever it might be, and yeah, you can make up a a conclusion in your mind, but just welcome whatever it might be, because by being so open and curious and inquisitive, you'll actually grow far faster, because you're sort of almost tapping back into this like 4-year-old neuroplasticity level where you're just like, I want to learn,
Yeah.
and it helps. It really helps to just drop arrogance, because we all have it. Like, we all have an ego. It's just how much we can tame that ego, you know. And yeah, it makes a big difference, I think, just to try and become so curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I really resonate with that, because I remember the day, so kind of about my story, I work in construction, but I only work construction so I could listen to podcasts. And I kind of remember the day that I was listening to a podcast and I was like, wow, I know fucking nothing.
Who is it? Yeah.
I think it was Tom Billy or someone.
Oh,
Just
yeah,
someone
Impact Theory.
really, someone really smart speaking. And I was like, wow, I really don't know much about the universe, about life, about anything.
Yeah.
And that was like super liberating.
It's like the more you learn, the less you realise you know,
Yeah.
right? You think you know everything. When I was in my like early teens, I knew everything. No one could question me, and if you tried to, I'd argue back.
Yeah.
And it's only as you take on more information, and you're like, wow, like there is so much to this. Like, I hate cooking, so if someone was to throw a cookbook at me, I wouldn't know anything about it until I sort of dived in, and then realised how big this area is, you know, and it's like how much I don't know. And it's only when you're able to turn around to yourself and say, like, I really don't know anything. Also, Tony Robbins talks about how, like, everything is just an opinion. No matter how factual you try to get with it, it is still just an opinion. Like, he mentioned about how the 4-minute mile was impossible to break. And ultimately that was just an opinion, because people were saying, no, like, statistically it will never happen, this, that, the other. It was broken once. And now there's, you know, like, more than, I don't know the number, but more than a dozen people, I think, have broken the 4-minute mile, and it's maybe way more than that, I don't know. But again, it's just an opinion that you can't do something, or whatever it might be. So
100%. So let's talk about being in Bali. Why did you choose Bali as a place to live?
I mean, there's multiple. If we can cut out the obvious of the sun, and do you know, one thing that really comes to mind actually was, I was curious about but didn't know I would be so in love with, is the culture. You know, everyone out here is so happy to see you. You walk the streets of London and everyone's got their head down, just getting to work, and in the rat race, as you call it, no one wants to really be that friendly. It's energy, right? Everything is energy. So being out here, experiencing that every single day is beautiful. It helps that it's a tax haven. But to me, I didn't realise, I had an idea that it was quite nomadic, but didn't realise how so, like how much so. I think that makes sense. As we had this discussion earlier, like the relationships you build out here are incredible.
Insane.
They're absolutely incredible. And maybe I'm just in the wrong, putting myself in different areas back at home. I don't know, but it seems like everyone out here kind of thinks the way I do, but on a much grander scale. And I love that every day is a learning day.
100%.
I just love being inspired by literally everyone I speak to. Everyone's kind of on a mission to better themselves. You know, and like I was talking about earlier with that, the whole arrogance thing, that don't exist. It doesn't exist out here. There is no one that thinks they're doing better than you. To my degree, to my knowledge anyway. It's always just a case of like, how can I help? You know, or I just love diving deep into conversation and coming away thinking, wow, you know. So there's a lot of that out here. But yeah, I do love the sun. So
100%. And it's almost like it's like there's a filter, because you have to have like a certain type of mindset to just hop on a plane and come to Bali, and then to be able to actually live here and sustain yourself, you also have had to have gone through many trials and tribulations and built something for yourself, right? And I think, like, I like to say that, like, back home I could find similar people, but it would be harder to find them. Like, how do I get into those groups? Like, I think I would have to be at a certain level as them to get in with them. But here it's like you can come here as absolute beginner starting your business, and you can network and become friends with guys at the top of the game. And it's like, it's like the most, I would argue it's one of the most like densely populated place of like-minded entrepreneurs in the world. It's insane.
That's a great way to put that, to be honest, man. I like the way you put that. But God, I don't even know how to move on. I don't know how to add to that, to be perfectly honest.
So do you see Bali as a long-term home, or where do you see yourself living?
So I didn't. When I first came here, I was only meant to be here for 2 months, and it got to,
Classic.
Yeah, man, literally. And it just kind of got to a point where I was like, how can I leave? Because I was doing everything, or I am doing everything. Say all that again. I'm doing everything here that I was doing at home in terms of waking up at a set time and getting like a morning ice bath and getting my training in early doors and having my set times that I'm on the markets and taking time out to read a book, listen to a podcast. That kind of all is still ongoing, only nowadays a bit more flexible than it used to be because I was in such a rigid mind that it was a bit weird, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I'm doing all of that. Well, I was doing all of that at home, but in the freezing cold, man. It was tough. It was fine because I was in my own little bubble and I was just pushing on and I was like making it happen. But yeah, I'm doing exactly that out here, but also networking and going for lunches and coffees and coconuts with incredible people. And we spoke earlier about the power of networks and the power of environment. It's if you do want to elevate to the next level, it has such a significant level of importance that you shouldn't really shy away from it. But it does take a lot, I guess, to move halfway around the world to a place where you don't know anyone, and like you say, you've got to try and be self-sustainable. It is challenging, and you do get these sort of thoughts that go into your mind thinking, will I make this work and stuff, but that's natural, I think. I don't doubt that probably everyone does get them same thoughts, but again, it's just a gap.
Yeah.
You close that gap down and realise it's your ego trying to protect you, and it's going to happen. But you know logically that you're beyond that, so you'll be fine.
100%. So, like, personally, I think that I'll have Bali as one of my bases. I want to have bases all around the world, maybe Dubai, maybe like Cape Town, maybe Miami, I don't know. Like, so where do you see yourself living in the next 5-10 years?
Similar to you in a sense of Bali being one of the options, but at the same time I'm very family oriented, so it'll definitely, like back home, I live not too far from London, and I do miss my family a great deal, man. So that would absolutely be a hub, but being out here has made me realise, because I mean I've gone on holidays before but never based myself somewhere for a long time ever in my life, so it's made me realise that this is quite easy to do. There's no need to restrict yourself to one little like circle, almost trap yourself, because you're just doing yourself a discredit for the experiences that you may have. So I think Bali, London, whether Dubai comes up, I don't know. I know that's quite it's quite a bit of eye candy for everyone that's on our path, I guess.
Zero tax.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I don't really think too far ahead, which shocks people when I speak to them, because they're like, what's your plan? And I'm like, well, I don't really have one, because like it. And I think again that goes back to the societal norm of like, you must complete this by this, have a family by then, buy a house by then, Life isn't like that, man. You've just got to enjoy it. Like, live in the present moment. Obviously try to better yourself every day, and let things happen and take opportunities when they arise. Like, if you're going to sort of reserve yourself because you're worried, you're going to hold yourself back from what could be. So therefore, for me, it's a case of like, I don't necessarily have a plan of where I will be in 5 to 10 years, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I trust in the fact that it will all work out just as it's supposed to, albeit I stay committed to myself. Yeah,
100%. I want to touch on that topic of like, it will work out in the way that it's supposed to. So like, I think one of my first business lessons, or I guess life lessons, would be that it always fucking works out. And even if it doesn't, it still does. right? Like 90% of the things 99% of the things you're worried about aren't gonna kill you. Yeah, and not gonna happen. Not gonna kill you. You know, like it's just a thought in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just kind of for myself was realizing that it's gonna work out, whether it's today, tomorrow, or next month, that it will work out, and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those where, like, if you're going through hard times, it will end.
Mm-hmm.
Just as much as a good time would, but that's a different topic. But if you're going through a hard time, it will end. And if it's not, if it's still ongoing, then it's just not the end.
Mm-hmm.
So just trust in the fact that, like, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like you're saying. I remember something else you said there that really popped an idea into my head.
How things won't kill you. They won't happen.
Yeah, that
Just
was
an
it.
idea
What
in
was
your
it?
head.
The idea in your head. I really wish I knew who quoted it, but it was like, the majority of the ideas that come to mind never actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
So stop worrying. But again, it just is that default mind of ours,
Yeah.
which is where the self-sabotage comes from, where the disbelief, where like imposter syndrome. It's all of these projecting yourself into a future reality that is a kind of worst-case scenario to a degree, to almost talk you out of what you want to do to protect yourself from the current being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a dangerous way to live, but it's kind of how a lot of us do live. But if you can realise the other end of that spectrum is like, what if it all works out better than I can even imagine?
Yeah.
If I just overcome these thoughts that are like trying to hold me back, because again, they are just trying to protect you. And the moment you can sort of befriend your ego, you've cracked it.
100%.
You literally, if you can understand that it's just a defense mechanism, it's just there to keep you safe. But landing in that safety net all the time is a bit of a boring way to live. So.
Yeah. Yeah, because like one thing is like at the end of the day, we're gonna fucking die anyways. So like,
very stoic.
and everything that you do is like it won't be remembered.
Oh, this is it. When you like say 3 generations down, no one even knows you existed.
Yeah.
That's quite a scary
Like,
thing to think
know,
about. But
I don't know the name of my great grandpa.
no.
I could find it, but I don't off the top of my head know his
Yeah,
name.
I'm the same.
And it's like, yeah, like things won't matter, and just like that, just because you post that one thing, it's not gonna matter. Just because they might criticize you, they might call you weird or this or that, it doesn't matter.
It don't, man.
So you might as well just go after whatever you want to truly do,
Yeah.
and live that life, because I would rather be on my deathbed knowing what did happen than left wondering what could have happened if I tried.
Les Brown talks about like picturing yourself on your deathbed, and beside you was all of these dreams of all these people that you could have become, and they're looking down on you saying like, we were there waiting for you, but you never brought us to life, and now we're gone and we're dead with you. Like, imagine living that. Imagine how painful that would. Well, you wouldn't be able to experience it, obviously, but it's quite a daunting thought. So why not go back to what I was saying earlier about being your most authentic self and not caring what people think about you, and just doing what you want to do, living your dream, because ultimately that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no one else can sort of dictate your path, your life, your journey. It's all completely up to you. So live it to your potential and stop worrying about what people think, because everyone's going to think.
Yeah.
As we spoke about, there will be people out there that kind of want to see you fail.
Mm-hmm.
So just accept that and do your thing.
Do you have anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think like the power of imagination and visualization. I was listening to something on the way up here actually, speaking about like how, picturing where you want to be, but living it now. So like say it's not that I want to go down a materialistic route, but saying it's a car that you really want to own one day. The car that you're driving, visualize that. And that sounds stupid, it sounds petty, it sounds silly, but I had that. That come to me, and that I achieved that, and it's beautiful. And it's a case of like, one thing to understand is the mind doesn't know the difference between an imagination and reality. So why not live what you are perceiving in your imagination? Because ultimately, if you can ingrain that to such a strong degree, you will experience it. There might be people out there thinking I'm speaking absolute mumbo jumbo, but I mean, it's not the case. There's quantum physics is studied for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So it's a case of like, you are able to live the life that you wish for by living it now.
Mm-hmm.
it sounds so simple.
Yeah, and
But-
then it brings that life actual into your current reality.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something an idea that Joe Dispenza talks about.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that guy.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really want to go to one of his seminars or whatever you call it.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
meant to go to one a couple of years ago actually, in Moscow, and I flew out. I had an interconnecting flight from London to Moscow through Amsterdam. I don't know why I can't speak. I had an interconnecting flight through Amsterdam to Moscow, and it was all going well. I actually was reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself at the time, which was perfect because that taught me a lot about meditation as well, which is incredible. And I get to Moscow airport at like 3 a.m. and I hand over my paperwork, a passport control, this, that, the other, and he stops and says, "What's this?" And I said, "It's my visa, my passport, my boarding pass." And he went, "Wait there a minute," and then he goes and gets one of his colleagues, brings him over, and he's like, "Come with me." So I sit down on this chair out in the middle of nowhere, like not even at the passport office anymore. And then the shutters start coming down at the passport office at 3 a.m. No one's there no more. Everyone goes off shift. I'm like, this is scary. I'm trapped in Moscow airport. I can't leave, obviously. They've got my passport and taken it somewhere. Then they take me into a room and interrogate me for about 4 hours and say, like, "Why are you here? What are you doing? This, that, the other." Because my visa was only an invitation to visa. It wasn't the proper, and I didn't know that. Obviously, it's my negligence that got me there. Ultimately, they sent me back to Amsterdam, and I had to pay for a flight from Amsterdam back to London. I missed the whole event. I was gutted. Absolutely
That must have been
gutted.
so tough.
I spent like $3,000 on airport stays. Pretty much, I just went from London to Amsterdam to Moscow, back to Amsterdam, back to London for the weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, in the same clothes, and it was grim. It was horrible.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't nice.
Did you learn something from that?
This is the thing. So I was talking to my coach at the time, and I was like, I went with intention to learn, right, and to grow, and I fucking did. I learned to read the small print more, but also just like I was in an uncomfortable environment, and I just had to deal with it. I'm not sure what the life lesson was there, but ultimately, it weren't meant to be. But I do want to go to one of his events at some point. That's probably pointless to put in your podcast, by the way, that story. I'm sorry.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I do want to go to one of his events, or more than one, to be perfectly honest with you, because, again, that is like almost, like what we're saying about Bali and being around like a concentrated area of like-mindeds, as the term goes. In an area like that, it's even more squeezed, and you're just gonna, mate, I don't know how to word that, but you're just gonna blow.
Yeah. 100%. Let's talk about when you first jumped into the world of entrepreneurship. Did you worry about money? Like, did you worry about how am I going to pay this? How am I going to do that?
Yeah. I think, you've got to, haven't you? Like it's something that we all need as much as when you dive into it. Money is just an agreeable piece of paper that holds no worth. But it's something that you obviously need to consider for sure. But I think I was more attracted to the fact that, like, the more risks I take, the more opportunities I could create. So that was always something that kind of overpowered the safety, so to speak. Because ultimately you can go and find a job that can pay you consistently sort of average or above average wage or whatever it might be to just keep you like at a level, but you're limiting yourself to the experiences that you could have. So by taking a few more risks and breaking out of the mould, you're doing yourself a favour long term. I agree, obviously it is riskier and things could go wrong. They have for me in the past, so there is that to consider. But again, if you're going to, it's talking about what we spoke about earlier, with like the paradox of just accepting something now because it's stable, but then living that your entire life and retiring at 65, which will probably be 92 by the time we get there, or taking the risks now so that you can enjoy more of your life as you develop. So like money is always a concern, or always had been a concern, but for me, it was just weighing it up. You know, it's a case of what do I value more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that brings me, like, that reminds me of when I quit my job and started my business. And one of the biggest reasons why I took that leap and I took that risk is because I saw the life of my coworkers as in like, that was my future. And I was like, okay, that's what I get if I go down this path. But if I go down this path, then I could get whatever. But I already knew the outcome of one path, right? So I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna take the other path. I'm gonna take that risk. I'm gonna start the business, and if everything fails, then I can go back to what I was doing.
Exactly,
if
man.
I need
and you're
to.
okay with that.
Yeah,
you gotta be okay with that because things can go wrong, but you've got a fallback option. But you know, I think maybe as well the reason people don't necessarily want to take that risk is potentially the fear of judgment as well. You know.
Yeah.
Like, because as we spoke about, when those that are encouraging you not to do whatever because it kind of shows them where they could be but they're too scared to go and stuff, and that can hold you back. But by overcoming that, you're opening up doors that you didn't know you had. So yeah, it's just a case of, again, weighing up the options and seeing what suits you, because there's nothing wrong with the other life, you know. There's nothing wrong with staying secure and
if you're happy.
Exactly, right? There is no way to live as such. Like, we're all on our own journeys. So whatever makes you happy, that's exactly the way to put it.
And another thing too was like, even if everything fails, and this is something Alex Hormozi talks about, even if everything fails in a business or whatever it is, people think that they're left with nothing. But what they're really left with is the beliefs, the character traits, the experiences, and those things are the most valuable things you can get, right? Because then those are the things that you can take on to the next business and do it 10 times better because you've done it before. You know what to do. You have that discipline or that right mindset.
I heard Luke Belmar talk about the paradox of, like, the things we value recently, and he said that how you know, like the cars, the things we all apply value to, we can, like, we're so hurt when we lose them, so to speak, right? But then the things that almost hold no value, that comes to us for free, we don't put a value on them. You know, like what you're saying about businesses and the knowledge that you can obtain and this, that, the other, and whatever experiences you go through for that, or just gratitude, whatever it might be, that's all free. And that is that's ultimately is where the value's at. Yeah. But we put value on things that are monetary because we feel like that's where value deserves to be, but it's just not the case, right? So yeah, like you're saying with Alex Hormozi, it's a case of, like, if you can understand that value comes from your experience, not from what you can throw your cash at, then you're
100%. Alright, so I think we're going to wrap things up here, but I wanted to ask one last question. So if there was one piece of advice that you could give to your younger self, what would that be?
Just don't give up.
Don't give up.
Easily. Yeah, just do not stop. Because I think if I'd have applied a bit more pressure, I don't know if it's just like a mental issue, but I would probably be further than where I am right now, and that's not to say I'm not happy. That I'm very pleased with where I am, but just don't give up and strive for more, and not necessarily worry about what people think. Because when I was trapped in this identity crisis, it pushed me back a little bit. But why? You know, so just to keep striving for more, and also, like, your belief systems are far more powerful than you think they are. It's not just a case of living in, like, la la land. There is purpose behind your imagination, so use it to the greatest ability, and understand that it's there for a reason, and it's there to show you what you could have. So just keep pushing forward and get excited with it, get energetic with it, and know that it's yours to be had.
100%. Well, thank you, LJ.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Take care, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.